Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. This time, why a flower farm is popping up at Chelsea.
I'm there to say, can you be a flower grower too? We need a flower grower in every one of our 6,000 villages in order to meet the market.
First though, hare coursing, the illegal hunting of hares with dogs. It's been a long-standing problem for farmers, damaging crops, fencing and land. New sentencing guidelines for hare coursing will come into effect next month, taking into account the impact of the crime on farms and rural communities. One farmer in Essex says he's been targeted almost 200 times in 8 months by hare coursers. BBC Look East's Lee Milner reports.
659, just search under Section 8 of Hunting Act.
Across the fields of Essex, this crime is becoming harder to ignore. Hare coursing, where organised groups use dogs to chase and capture hares, often causing damage to farmland and distress to rural communities.
These people, they're coming armed with catapults, they're coming armed with huge machetes. It's just not safe to go out there in the months when you know the hare coursing's happening.
Matthew Register is an arable farmer near Dunmow. In the last 8 months alone, he says his land has been targeted almost 200 times. He says when he calls the police, the response can vary.
Some members of local policing teams, they are fantastic. They do understand what is going on. You get other police officers that come from Braintree and Dunmow. They have absolutely no clue, and they will stand in front of you when hare coursing is happening and go, I'm sorry, we're not getting our kit muddy.
Essex's Chief Constable BJ Harrington visited Matthew's farm, where he met with local farmers who say they're increasingly living on edge.
We've not been as good as we should have been, but today has given us a real opportunity to listen, to understand the impact and to give a really clear commitment to do the things that we do best, which is working with communities to catch criminals.
At the meeting, he announced a new county-wide action plan to tackle the growing crime, including more specialist training for officers and for 999 calls on hare coursing to be treated with the same urgency as a robbery. Right now, anyone caught hare coursing face an unlimited fine and up to 6 months in prison. New sentencing guidelines will come into force in June, meaning courts will now be told to consider the harm caused to people, animals, farmland and wildlife, as well as the impact on rural communities and landowners. For Matthew, the damage to his farm has already cost him around £30,000, but he says the financial impact is no longer his biggest concern. It's the fear of what could happen next.
Lee Milner reporting. The UK's largest food and farm assurance scheme, Red Tractor, has had a difficult couple of years, but its new chief executive says he's confident a standards overhaul will make it work better for farmers and consumers. Last October, the Advertising Standards Authority ruled that a Red Tractor TV ad, which started running in 2023, was misleading on environmental claims. And following disquiet from farmers, an independent review of Red Tractor called for a fundamental reset. The new chief executive, Paul McLaughlin, told me his vision for the future of Red Tractor.
Well, I want Red Tractor to be trusted by farmers, chosen by markets and understood by consumers. And within that, I know that rebuilding farmers' trust is really critical. So in this early stage of my role, I'm very much in listening mode. So we recognise that confidence in farm assurance has been tested recently, and farmers and growers have been clear the scheme needs to become much more practical and transparent, and that feedback is shaping the current reforms that we're undergoing.
You are joining the scheme as it's picking itself up, really, after a pretty difficult year last year. The Advertising Standards Authority ruled that a Red Tractor TV ad implied greater environmental care on Red Tractor assured farms. That was misleading. But how are you going to break away from the rather beleaguered reputation of Red Tractor?
But over the last year and a half or so, I think it's important to highlight we really have changed as an organisation, and we're working extremely hard to deliver a cost-effective scheme that's trusted and valued by farmers, growers, the supply chain, and importantly, consumers.
So what have you actually changed?
Yeah, so we have been implementing a whole programme of review of our standards. Dozens of people from across the industry have been reviewing every one of our standards and audit points, line by line, word by word even, to make sure that they are fit for purpose, that they don't duplicate each other, and wherever possible can reduce the audit burden while maintaining a proper assessment of the supply chain.
How are you going to regenerate the red tractor label for consumers and make sure they understand that it is doing what it's saying it does?
Well, over the last 25 years, Red Tractor has become a really important brand and logo within the UK food sector, providing a lot of confidence in British food. And we've just done some recent research that shows 94% of consumers trust British food, and assurance certification schemes like Red Tractor are the fastest growing driver of that trust. Red Tractor assures more than £17 billion of UK produced food and drink already, and that logo is recognised by around 3/4 of UK consumers and primary shoppers. It does already help provide confidence in British food. Does
it really? Do you think it does?
I think it does do that, and the research that we've just recently done demonstrates that, definitely.
Paul McLaughlin, CEO of Red Tractor. Today is final judging day at the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, ahead of the show's opening to the public tomorrow. Well, this year, the Great Pavilion will include a mini flower farm to promote British production. The display's been created by 8 growers from the organisation Flowers from the Farm. It says after years of the market being dominated by cheaper imports, interest in British flowers is burgeoning. Now more producers are needed to keep pace with the new demand. Sarah Swadling went to meet Georgie Newbury on her flower farm in Somerset during preparations for Chelsea.
This is my main crop of ranunculus. There are actually only about 400 ranunculus plants here, and I will be cropping them over the next few weeks for all my weddings. Then we have my honesty crop here, which I really grow for the seed heads, which are beautiful in wedding flowers, because those little seed pods, they will go silver and they turn into like silver dollars. So it's like giving people money and good luck in their bouquets.
We're in a polytunnel which is bursting at the seams with flowers either in bloom or about to come into bloom. The ranunculus that are at our feet to the left are this very delicate circular flower that almost looks as though the petals have been made out of paper.
We flower growers call them the rose of spring because they've got a sort of rosy shape which fills the gap between the tulips and the peonies and the roses. So they're a fantastically valuable crop.
We've come out of the polytunnel now and wandered across the lawn where there are some interesting bits of metalwork leaning against the apple trees.
Well, Flowers from the Farm is taking a functioning flower farm to the Chelsea Flower Show. So the metalwork is an exploding greenhouse, which has been made by a man called Nathan Shaw. We wanted to have a greenhouse, because obviously all good flower farms have a greenhouse. The normal-sized greenhouse isn't tall enough for the spectacular floristry that we're planning to create. So we've exploded the greenhouse, and the uprights have turned into leaves.
Why take a recreation of a flower farm to Chelsea? Why not, just a display of the flowers?
Well, I think it's really important that people can see how the process works, that if you grow in a polyculture, as we mostly do, it's incredibly good for the environment, that you're giving all the invertebrates different kinds of things to eat, but you're also growing actual beauty. So we're showing the whole process. You grow it, you harvest it, there will be a trolley of flowers, and then you turn it into floristry. But here are the nettles, or some of them.
Are the nettles going to Chelsea?
The nettles are coming to Chelsea because Nettles make fantastic food for cut flowers, very high nitrogen food.
You can cut them and make a fertiliser from them.
You can make a fertiliser from them. But without nettles, we wouldn't have the Vanessa butterfly family. So they're here for lots of reasons.
I also understand that there'll be a compost bin.
Yes, there'll be a compost bin. Think about it. Every time you cut a stem of a flower and take it away from your patch and give it to somebody else because they bought it from you, you need to replace that goodness. So we're going to have a compost heap and we're going to make fresh compost with the stems that are actually cut to make the floristry. So I've made a cage, or rather Nathan has made a cage, and here it is. It's got a lid. There we are. We're telling everybody that we're not just gardeners, we're flower growers. I'm there to say, can you be a flower grower too? We need a flower grower growing flowers for sale in every one of our 6,000 villages in order to meet the market. We have a British Flowers cooperative starting at Covent Garden. We're beginning to have the logistics that we lost.
And do you have consumers there who want to buy locally grown
Absolutely.
flowers?
I get rung up by really large-scale luxury wedding florists in London. I'm in southeast Somerset, and they ring up and go, can we buy your crop? And I say, what, my whole crop? And they say, yeah, we'll just buy your whole crop, because their customers are asking for it. We always want flowers for all kinds of occasions, but we're choosing where they come from. And if they can be grown in a flower farm not far from you, happy days.
Georgie Newbury there, external co-chair of Flowers from the Farm, and all this week we'll be taking a look at the rebirth of the British flower industry. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill, the producer was Sarah Swadling. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.